Moons of Madness is a first-person sci-fi horror game taking place on Mars, in a future that's seen humanity establish a foothold on the planet. The game blends science fiction and Lovecraftian fantasy together, resulting in an unnerving experience holding many merits while also falling into some disappointing shortcomings. In the not-so-distant future of 2063, a successful business known as Orochi has established a secret scientific base on Mars due to reasons unknown by most of its employees. You play as Shane Newerhart, an engineer responsible for the maintenance of the settlement, blissfully unaware of the corporation's true intentions regarding the research of the Red Planet. This lack of honest communication eventually leads to catastrophe, as things quickly start spiraling out of control, throwing Shane into a life-or-death conflict. A dark infection has sprouted through the heart of the base, and it's up to the survivors to stop it from spreading further. Well, it's mostly up to Shane since he seems to be doing all the work, but I'll get to that in a moment. The infection is where the game gets its Lovecraftian acclaim. A plethora of dark tentacles alongside black goo, infectious plants, toxic formations, and other various twisted creatures are a common occurrence in the world of Moons of Madness, whose grotesque appearances add to an already unnerving atmosphere. Mars was hardly a hospitable planet before this disease came into fruition. Living through the harsh conditions has become a normality to the crew living here, so when a few malfunctions pop up and Shane is sent on a routine repair mission to fix them, everything seems normal. This seemingly mundane assignment takes him across the Martian landscape, isolated from the rest of the base. While the game does start off slow and uneventful, the mood of the whole situation is eerie, and it's hard to shake off the feeling that you're being followed. It doesn't help that you get jump scared by a weird apparition every so often, but that's beside the point. What I'm trying to get at is that right from the get-go, Moons of Madness makes a pretty good point that you are never safe. Even when you're outside, out in the open, the tension is there, and just because you're walking through a brightly lit corridor doesn't mean that something nasty isn't hanging around the corner, waiting for you. The merging of Lovecraftian horror and sci-fi elements was something that I wasn't expecting to work, but to my surprise, it's executed quite well. The story, though not without its faults, does much to capture the imagination of Lovecraft while also fitting it in a science fiction setting that has plenty of its own intrigue. Scattered notes and dozens of computer consoles give you insight into Orochi and the real purposes behind the Martian settlement, as well as getting to know more about the characters living here. There's a lot of world building to experience, and all of it is very much interesting. The problem that I have with the narrative is that it simply tries to tackle too much. I won't be going into spoiler territory for this review, but what I will say is that there are some plot lines that either don't go anywhere or are just quietly slipped under the rug, instead of being provided with a concrete conclusion. There's a couple you could take out and it wouldn't have a negative impact on the experience at all. It's disappointing because some of these were pretty interesting when initially brought up, but they just don't go anywhere. As far as the main narrative goes though, I don't really have any major issues. Putting the slow start aside, it builds up really well, with dozens of memorable sequences, and the ending pays it off really well. I'd say the only thing that lets the base story down is the characters. You don't really see them since you're all at different places on the planet, but you keep in radio contact with them as they're doing their own investigations into what's happening. Despite hearing them a lot though, they don't really feel that much involved in the story. If there's something that needs doing, you'll be the one to do it. Almost every kind of life-threatening situation is placed on Shane, while the others just let him get on with it, occasionally offering input when needed. As for Shane himself, well, he's a bit inconsistent. One minute he's panicking and on the verge of completely freaking out, which is pretty understandable, and the next he's just stone calm like everything is okay. This might have just been a behind-the-scenes voice acting issue that just wasn't fixed, but it's kind of funny. So while there are a few flaws, overall I enjoyed the story. It's interesting from start to finish, and the added world-building elements make it all the more memorable. On a visual front, the game makes a pretty strong first impression. Mars may be a barren wasteland, but that doesn't mean it's unremarkable, and Moons of Madness captures this perfectly. The scale of some of the landscapes is immense, being able to see for miles in each direction. You'd think these open areas would detract from the horror, but like I said before, they don't. You may not spend a great deal of time outside, but in each instance when you are, you can't help but feel exposed and vulnerable. Being inside doesn't fare any better either, thanks to the overgrowth of tentacles and horrible infestations. Their disgusting appearances do a pretty good job enhancing the horror, especially in certain areas where going too close can pose a hazard to the player. There's this really cool detail where if you go too close to infected areas, these arms appear around your screen, and the closer you get, the more they cover your field of view. It's a pretty effective way of telling the player to stay clear, in a way that fits with the game's setting. This level of attention to detail is present throughout all of the locations you travel to, from the various corridors and rooms of the settlement, to the greenhouse and the secret lower levels of the base. They're all incredible to look at. You also get a good sense that, despite the lack of human presence, these areas were lived in and were maintained. Although being a pretty bleak experience overall, the visuals never cease to be impressive. Using the right colours and effective lighting techniques, the game is able to set the mood instantly. A lot of tension I experienced playing this was as a result of both of these. Sometimes you might not be in any real danger at all, but because of the way the area looks, it still feels uncomfortable to continue. When it comes to optimization, I've seen mixed results from other people. Personally, I didn't have any issues at all, and was able to keep a steady 60 FPS at all times, but there were a couple instances where my PC sounded like it was on the verge of exploding. I'm using a 3070, so I can't say for sure if the game is poorly optimized, but it's something I felt was worth noting. The gameplay mechanics for Moons of Madness can be split into two categories: walking, or running depending on the given circumstances, and puzzle solving. In essence, it can be described as a walking simulator with spooky elements, but that description isn't entirely fair. In truth, it's hard to predict what your next objectives are going to be due to the deteriorating nature of the situation you're placed in. One minute you'll be trying to repair a malfunction or get something working again, and the next you'll be running for your life. If things are quiet, they're usually not quiet for long, and that's something that I really liked because even though the game is a walking simulator, it didn't feel like one. The challenges it throws at you are varied, and since the main narrative is compelling, I rarely got bored. That is, until the game throws a puzzle at you. Oh boy. Yeah, these... just... no. I mean, some of them are fine. The one where you have to rotate the thing and guide the blue thing to the exit or whatever you call it, that was fine. This one where you have to put specific vials in and then have to move them around because the machine is unbalanced, that one was really not fine. Moons of Madness has a lot of these puzzles, and half of them aren't really explained. You might get lucky and find a vague note on a computer nearby that kind of tells you what to do, but also doesn't. So you're left to your own devices and have to figure it out on your own. Investigation, nothing wrong with that. Just one problem. You're walking through a dark, cramped corridor that's full of these nasty tentacles and disgusting overflows of black sludge, fearing that anything will come jumping out. Then, all of a sudden, you have to mess around with a machine that you don't really understand. You try it, fail, walk around to find a solution, come back, fail again, rinse and repeat. All of a sudden, the tension you felt before is gone, and you just don't care. That's how I'd describe most of these puzzles. Even the ones that aren't particularly difficult, they're just bland. It trips up the atmosphere by taking you out of it completely. I understand that they're there to add some variety, but at the cost of taking you out of the immersion, it's not worth it. It's a shame because the gameplay is at its best during these moments of great tension. Whether you're navigating through unsettling rooms looking for information, or running away from something horrible trying to kill you. Even the quiet moments early on I enjoyed. I thought the slow start at the beginning was absolutely great. I will finish off by saying that although there are a lot of these puzzles, that isn't all there is to the gameplay. The majority of it is roaming around and trying to survive, and there are some brilliant sequences that feel fantastic to play through. It's just a shame that there are some unnecessary hurdles that do little to earn their place. Horror games are far from a specialty of mine, so when it comes to judging how scary this game is, you might want to take a pinch of salt, but what I will say is that when there isn't an annoying puzzle nearby, Moons of Madness does a pretty good job at making you feel uneasy. There are a few jump scares, which can be hit or miss, but its haunting atmosphere is where the horror succeeds the most. Couple that with a disturbing but equally compelling narrative, and you have a game that I can safely recommend to both horror and non-horror game fans alike. Its main problem is a lack of focus in some of its core areas. In its story, it tries to grapple with too much when its main plot is more than enough, while also failing to build up its characters more, whereas the gameplay suffers from awkward puzzle mechanics that serve as a detriment to the experience as a whole. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more indie reviews like this one, consider subscribing. I've also got a lot of written reviews you can check out, which I'll link in the description below. See you next time. Bye.